It was fitting indeed that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh should begin their 1963 Australian tour at an RAAF base. Grey skies and rain did nothing to mar the warmth of the welcome when the Royal aircraft landed at Canberra. The Governor-General and the Prime Minister were there to greet the royal visitors. The Queen then inspected an RAAF guard of apprentices from the Wagga School of Technical Training. It was to be the first of many occasions on which the RAAF was to play an active part in the royal tour. Undoubtedly, a ceremonial highlight was the parade of officer cadets at Canberra's Manuka Oval. The Queen was met by the Minister for Defence, the Honourable Athol Townley. He introduced the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Air Marshal Sherger, and then in turn the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Hancock, the Chief of the Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Harrington, and the Chief of the General Staff, Lieutenant General Wilton. Sabre jet fighters from the Williamtown base swooped out of the clouds to combine with the cadets in the royal salute. Massed bands of the armed services provided a musical backdrop for the precision drill. Set against a surrounding of green lawns and trees, the cadets and the bandsmen presented a stirring spectacle of Australia's youth in uniform. Squadron Leader Hicks of the RAAF Central Band directed the service bands. It was a spectacle which all too soon had to end. 3 cheers from the cadets ended a memorable parade, and a radiant and obviously happy young monarch smiled and waved to the crowd before leaving for a busy round of Canberra functions. Steaming into Port Phillip Bay, Britannia was surrounded by scores of sailing craft, but the RAAF launchers were also there to play their part. In Melbourne, the royal couple attended a round of engagements, at many of which, such as this gathering at the Maya Music Bowl, the RAAF Central Band further enhanced its musical reputation. High-speed aerobatics call for real precision, and these young pilots make a final check before taking off to fly over the Hobart Regatta. They're members of the Black Diamonds, the RAAF Sabre aerobatics team from the Williamtown base. It was a very special salute for the Queen while she was in Hobart, and befitting a royal occasion, the Black Diamonds put on a faultless display. While the RAAF was saluting the sky over Hobart, the Queen and the Duke were ferried ashore from the Royal Yacht Britannia, to the delight of an obviously happy crowd. Meanwhile, the Black Diamonds ploughed the sky with their white furrows high over Hobart. Alice Springs gave the royal visitors their first real glimpse of the inner heart of Australia. They were to see something of the challenges and the achievements which faced the dwellers of the inland. It wasn't long after the royal aircraft landed that they were able to see and be seen by some of the old Australians who were there to greet them. At Traeger Park, the accent was on informality, while in the background there was always the friendly bulk of the MacDonald Ranges to show that the inland has just as much colour as those lush coastal areas. For the locals, it's a very, very special occasion. But the rest of Australia was interested also, and so an RAAF Canberra bomber flashed to the east coast with television and press films. Meanwhile, the RAAF nursing sister from the Royal Aircraft made her own photographic record of this historic event. Alice Springs was to be a short stop, however, and in next to no time, Her Majesty was winging her way to Darwin. The background work of the RAAF still went on. Vehicles were loaded, royal visit officials were quickly on their way, and even the big Rolls-Royce didn't prove too great a burden for the Hercules of the Air Force. The RAAF ensign flutters a welcome at the Darwin base, northernmost point of the Queen's tour. The guard at Darwin is no less immaculate than guards at bases in the southern states. So when the Territory Administrator, Mr. Roger Knott, and Group Captain Henderson step forward to greet the royal visitors, the heat and the recent rain are forgotten. The RAAF is on parade. The RAAF base at Richmond was the take-off point of the aircraft which flew past in review before the Queen at Canberra. On this day, Richmond Aerodrome was alive with aircraft of all types. They were to fly to the national capital away to the south, where the Queen was to watch from a vantage point. It was the largest aerial salute of the royal visit. Crews and aircraft were drawn from representative squadrons and bases from most parts of the Commonwealth. The weather was grey and foreboding. First to take off and later to lead the various formations in salute were the Hercules transports. Next were the maritime reconnaissance Neptunes. And when the Canberra bombers took off into the leaden skies, it seemed as if the royal salute might not take place. But it did go on, and so onto the runway came the Sabre fighters, tightly packed. Taking off last, they could easily outpace the formations already airborne. So this aerial armada assembled to demonstrate an Air Force's loyalty. Below, under the clouds, the national capital was waiting. On the lawns fronting Parliament House, the royal visitors and the people looked past the King George V Memorial to see the formations fly past. Again, the Hercules were to the fore. Then the Neptunes. The Canberras, and finally the Sabres. Among the proudest of all RAAF members were the crew of the Convair, which carried the Queen and the Duke on their flights within Australia. Both Wing Commander Fitter, the captain of the aircraft, and one of the behind-the-scenes organisers, Wing Commander Addison, who was RAAF liaison officer for the tour, were honoured by the Queen when they were made members of the Victorian Order. But it was a leave-taking from the RAAF base at Canberra which so typified the royal visit. Happy and informal crowds watched the Queen and the Duke being farewelled. In the background was the gleaming bulk of the aircraft carrying the royal standard. A smile and a farewell wave, and once again Her Majesty and the Duke were flying with the RAAF.